lunch today with a few girls I know and a few guys, more females than men, talking about intrinsic value. How do we get intrinsic value conversation? I don't know. I'm sitting there listening. I don't agree with none of them because they're all in agreement that boys don't have intrinsic value. Only girls are born with intrinsic value. And then they asked me and they said, "You kind of quiet." And I'm like, because y'all all sound like, well, I didn't say it like this, but they all sound like crack babies to me. The point is, boys are born with intrinsic value, and the reason why they're born with intrinsic value is because what was the slave trade all about? What was the Civil War all about? Why do coaches from all different sports try to recruit these kids to come to their high school or get a scholarship or go to their university if they don't have no value when they're born? When you see a kid got some type of athleticism, all right. What about when you see a boy who might have a stroke of genius, might be good, be second and third grade, fourth grade, for some reason they're really good at math, really good at physics, really good at trigonometry or whatever the case may be, science and all that stuff. Maybe this kid could be a genius. They're going to test them because maybe there's so many problems in the world that need to be solved, historic problems that have not been solved that can better humanity. Maybe this kid come at it from a different angle, which that's how things get solved. They get the new young generation that's super smart. They can come at things from a different angle. So kids are born, male or female, with intrinsic value. You know, why? If you look at the olden times when it comes to war, you had young kids go on the war at young ages before the age of 12, like 8, 9, 10. You know, why is that? Because they have value, numbers, right? Bodies, right? They listen, right? Everybody's born with intrinsic value. It's not the same. Equal do not mean identical. I mean, identical do not mean equal, right? Things can be the same and not the same at the same time, if that makes sense. I'm kind of going randomly right now, but yes, because I'm like, what about the 13th Amendment? What about the slave trade? What about the Civil War? What about all this? Like, people have intrinsic value. Boys definitely have intrinsic value. I mean, you want boys to slave themselves out for the better of the country. That's becoming less evident because the world is going down because boys don't want to do what? They don't want to work. They don't want to do this, that, third. Everybody's complaining about what the men are doing. Why? Because the men have value. And if the men aren't spending money or making money to spend money, the economy goes down. Women, they want a man that's going to spend the money. We can go on this all day. The point is, boys have and men have intrinsic value. And the more you keep telling them they don't, the less likely they're going to want to spend the money and make the money and do the things you want them to do, which ultimately is just going to hinder and hurt the economy anyway. Yeah, they couldn't dispute what I was saying. But what it really came down to, they were saying boys don't have intrinsic value when it comes to dating and all sort of stuff and relationship. They got to build it up. Okay, I kind of agree with you with that. But if you see a kid that's bright, that's going to probably be successful, you would be a fool not to lock him down when he's young. So yes, still in that sense, young boys have the value already.